Behind closed doors and hidden in government budgets, a dark truth has been unfolding for decades, one that involves helpless animals, secretive funding, and a disturbing lack of public oversight. Welcome back to Politics of Deception. Today, we're exposing a disturbing truth about how millions of Americans' taxpayer dollars have been funneled into cruel and deadly experiments on Beagle dogs. Experiments conducted under the oversight of Dr. Anthony Fauci and the National Institutes of Health. Multiple media outlets, including Fox News, MSNBC, the New York Post, the Washington Post, and the Epoch Times, have uncovered how the National Institute of Health operated a lab at its Bethesda, Maryland campus that subject over 2,000 beagles to horrifying tests over more than 4 decades. These included intentionally infected the dogs with pneumonia-causing bacteria and other painful procedures, often ending in euthanasia. Located at the National Institutes of Health headquarters, this in-house lab was active for over 40 years. It became infamous for its gruesome treatment of beagle dogs. Beagles were injected with pneumonia-causing bacteria directly into their lungs. Many were subject to induced septic shock and organ failure. In some instances, the dogs were bled out, and their bodies were stored in refrigerators for later analysis. After mounting pressure and investigative reports, the lab was officially shut down in 2025 by the National Institutes of Health Director Dr. J. Bhattacharya. This foreign lab, located in Tunisia, funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars through the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, the division formerly led by Dr. Fauci. According to documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act and the White Coat Project, Beagle puppies had their vocal cords removed so that their cries wouldn't disturb the researchers. The puppies were drugged, confined in cages, and exposed to sandflies that ate them alive. This was part of parasitology research into disease called leishmaniasis. The funding for this project was estimated to be over $375,000. Before experimentation, beagle puppies are specifically bred or sourced for research and carefully screened to ensure they are disease-free and in good health. This ensures controlled conditions and reliable scientific data. During the experiment, the healthy puppies are exposed to infected sandflies, often by placing mesh boxes over their heads or other body parts. These sandflies carry a protozoan called leishmania, not bacteria, which they transmit through their bites. Once bitten, the parasite enters the puppy's bloodstream or skin and begins infecting their white blood cells. Over time, the dogs develop leishmaniasis, a serious and potential fatal disease. Researchers use this process to study disease progression, immune responses, and potential vaccines or treatments. However, the practice is ethically controversial as it involves infecting healthy puppies with a painful disease. Symptoms of leishmaniasis in dogs include skin lesions, fever, weight loss, organ enlargements, eye problems, and, in severe cases, of death or euthanasia. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you. It really means a lot. If you're enjoying the content, I highly appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel, give this video a like, comment below, and share it with your friends. That way you won't miss any of my upcoming videos. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you continue watching this video. All of this was paid for with US taxpayer dollars, often without any public knowledge or consent. These projects were greenlit and funded under the National Institutes of Health umbrella, with Fauci's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease Division frequently at the center of the controversy. Despite public outrage and calls for accountability, little transparency has been offered by the agencies responsible. U.S. taxpayer dollars have funded various experiments involving Beagle puppies, with several notable allocations. $375,000 allocated by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease for experiments in Tunisia, where sedated beagles were exposed to sandflies. $11.4 million directed to the University of Missouri for maximum pain tick infestation experiments on Beagle puppies. $1.8 million approved by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease for testing and experimental hay fever drugs on dogs, rats, and mice. $2 million approved to Chinese laboratories, including Pharmaron drug testing on beagles and other animals. $424,455 spent on experiments where beagles were infected with parasite-carrying flies. These expenditures have raised ethical concerns and prompted calls for increased transparency and oversight regarding the use of taxpayer funds in animal research. This isn't just about animal rights, it's about government overreach, lack of transparency, and ethical breakdowns in scientific research. The fact that such horrific experiments continued for decades, both at home and abroad, using our money, should outrage every American. While the lab has now been shut down for following sustained pressure from watchdog groups and widespread public outrage, the revelations have sparked a growing movement demanding transparency, accountability, and end of taxpayer-funded animal cruelty. Despite closure, serious questions remain about the National Institute of Health's ongoing role in similar experiments and how federal funds continue to support them both domestically and abroad. What can you do? Raise awareness. Share this article with your friends, family, and community. Sign the petition. Join thousands demanding that National Institute of Health stop funding cruel and unnecessary animal experiments. Support investigative groups. Organizations like White Coat Waste Project are fighting for transparency and animal welfare every day. National Institute of Health Director Jay Bhattacharya announced the closure of the agency's last in-house Beagle testing lab during a May interview on Fox and Friends Weekend. This lab was notorious for injecting pneumonia-causing bacteria directly into beagles' lungs, pushing them into septic shock, a painful and often fatal immune system overreaction. After just a few days, surviving dogs were euthanized in their body's refrigerator. According to watchdog group White Coat Waste Project, which has led a nearly decade-long fight to expose this practice, at least 2,133 beagles died in these brutal experiments. White Coat Waste Project founder Anthony Bellutiti called the biggest animal testing scandal in history and applauded the Trump administration for cutting funds to these wasteful labs. The beagles used in these tests were sourced from a Virginia puppy mill operated by contractor Beagle, which was fined in 2024 for violating animal welfare laws. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Anthony Fauci came under fire after it was revealed that he had signed off on grants funding these experiments, including some conducted overseas. One of the most shocking reports, first highlighted by PETA, People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, and showed that Beagle puppies in Tunisia were drugged and had their heads locked in cages filled with hungry sandflies, parasites that literally fed on the dogs alive. Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, described these experiments as barbaric and gruesome, calling Fauci's actions sending puppies to slaughter with nearly $2 billion in taxpayer money to spend on removing vocal cords from beagle puppies so scientists couldn't hear their cries before they were drugged, killed, and dissected. A bipartisan group of 24 lawmakers signed a letter demanding answers from Fauci and the National Institute of Health, demanding an end to these inhumane tests. A closure of the National Institute of Health Beagle Lab comes amid a broader movement within the federal government to phase out animal testing. National Institute of Health Director Bhattacharya emphasized a new policy focusing on alternative technologies like artificial intelligence, organoids, and organs on a chip, tools believed to be better predict human health outcomes than animal models. The Food and Drug Administration and Environmental Protection Agency have also announced plans to reduce and eventually eliminate animal testing in favor of more modern methods. The White Coal Waste Project and other animal rights advocates celebrate this victory, but they warn the fight isn't over. Anthony Belluti stated the solution is simple: stop the money, stop the madness. They are pushing for Congress to fully defund all government funded dog labs, both domestically and overseas. Meanwhile, concerns remain about how much of our tax dollars have been wasted on painful, often failed tests that many argue have little relevance to human medicine. National Institute of Health's Bethesda lab subject over 2,000 beagles to deadly pneumonia and sepsis experiments for 40 plus years. Over 2,100 beagles died in these experiments. The lab was shut down under the National Institute of Health Director J. Bhattacharya in 2025. Dr. Anthony Fauci signed off on grants funding these tests, sparkling bipartisan outrage. Beagle testing also occurred overseas, including in Tunisia, where puppies were exposed to parasites carrying sandflies. Bipartisan lawmakers are demanding accountability and a permanent end to cruel animal testing. The federal government is moving towards advanced humane alternatives to animal testing. If you want to see an end to taxpayer funded animal cruelty and demand accountability for those responsible, share this video. This is Carlos Reese with Politics of Deception, keeping you informed about what they don't want you to know.